Hey everybody, welcome back to another edition of The Picks. This time we're covering week 4 of the 2021-2022 college football season. Before we get to the picks, please go ahead and like this video, share it with anyone else you think would enjoy it. Be sure to subscribe to my channel and turn on the notifications so that way you get alerted to new videos coming up on my channel. We've got a lot of really interesting games to talk about today, so we shouldn't waste any time. So let's dive right into the week 4 picks. We've got number 1, the Alabama Crimson Tide, coming off their 2-point win on the road against Florida. They are back home against Southern Miss. Go with Alabama in that one. The number 2, Georgia Bulldogs, they are on the road at Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt's not real good. Georgia's defense is stellar. Their offense still hasn't put it quite together yet. They're still waiting to get some injured components back, but they're good enough that they'll take out the Commodores. So go with Georgia for this one. The new number 3, the Oregon Ducks. They are home against Arizona. Arizona has already lost to BYU. They've lost to San Diego State. Last week, they lost to Northern Arizona. The Arizona Wildcats football team is a dumpster fire. Go with the Ducks on this at home. Number 4, Oklahoma hosting the West Virginia Mountaineers in a Big 12 showdown. This is a fascinating matchup because Oklahoma is one of a number of teams that has not been able to put things together yet. Their offense is struggling. Spencer Rattler is struggling. Their defense is good, better than it's been the last couple of seasons, but their offense is just not producing the same way it was under Baker Mayfield and then Kyler Murray and then most recently Jalen Hurts. Outside of the 76-0 drubbing they gave to Western Carolina, they struggled against Tulane. They struggled to move the ball against a Nebraska team that's decent but not really all that good. West Virginia, meanwhile, comes in with some momentum. They took out the, I think they were 16th or 17th ranked Virginia Tech Hokies last week. Although Virginia Tech almost came back from that game, their final drive stalled at the 4-yard line, and West Virginia managed to win. I don't know much about West Virginia. I have not seen them play this season, but I have seen Oklahoma play a few games so far, and I am concerned for them. I'm concerned about that offense getting off the ground. I don't know what's taking them so long to be able to finally put things together. I think West Virginia's got some momentum going into this. I think there are some teams in the Big 12 that view Oklahoma as being vulnerable this season. West Virginia just came off an upset win last week. They've never beaten Oklahoma since they moved into the Big 12. Since West Virginia moved into the Big 12 a number of years ago, they have never beaten the Oklahoma Sooners. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that that changes tomorrow. I'm going to go with the Mountaineers on a road upset over the number 4 Oklahoma Sooners. I'm very nervous about that pick because knowing my luck, tomorrow will be the week that Oklahoma puts it all together and they'll just steamroll West Virginia. But right now, I don't picture that happening. And I picture West Virginia being good enough that they can hang in, and eke out a win on the road. Number 5, Iowa. They are home against Colorado State. Go with the Iowa Hawkeyes on this one. Their defense is not only good, but they turn the ball over quite a bit. Look for that to continue on Saturday. Number 6, the Penn State Nittany Lions coming off a big home win last week against Auburn. They are home again against Villanova. Go with the Nittany Lions on that one. Number 7, the Texas A&M Aggies are on the road against number 16, the Arkansas Razorbacks. Arkansas struggled last week against a pretty inferior opponent, or a couple of weeks ago against an inferior opponent. They were down by like 10 points in the third quarter. They did have that huge win against Texas, though, where they just absolutely took them apart offensively. They were running the ball down their throat. Texas had no answer for their running attack, had no answer for what Arkansas was doing offensively. Texas A&M, meanwhile, has been struggling a bit with their backup quarterback. He's got a second week of practice with the first-team offense, though. And even though they blanked New Mexico last week, they scored 34 points, they didn't look overtly impressive doing it. I watched some of that game on a replay earlier this week, and they still just looked like there was no explosiveness in that offense. It looked like they were not a team that was going to be able to put up a fight against really good defenses like Alabama or Georgia. I think Texas A&M is also a team that's it's a weak number 7. because of some of the struggles they've had. They're going on the road to an Arkansas team that has got a lot of momentum. They took out Texas. They had a huge win, a big win last week against Georgia Southern, where they shut them out and won by 45 points. They're coming into this game. Their fans are going crazy. Their alumni are going crazy. A lot of people are high on high on Arkansas this season. I'm getting a bit high on Arkansas this season. I don't trust Texas A&M. I'm going to go with Arkansas in the upset at home over the number 7 team in the nation. So go with the Hogs on that one. Number 8, the Cincinnati Bearcats. They have a bye week this week before a huge matchup on the road at Notre Dame next week. Number 9, the Clemson Tigers, coming off a close win against Georgia Tech last week. They are they're on the road at North Carolina State. I did some research into this one, and I'm seeing 2 evenly matched teams here. In terms of passing offense, there's not that much difference. NC State is at 268 a game. Clemson's at 220. There's more difference in passing defense. North Carolina State is letting up 231 a game as opposed to Clemson's 134. In terms of rush offense, they're about the same. Rush defense, NC State's only letting up 63 yards a game, but they really haven't played anyone major this season so far. Clemson's letting up 112. Third down offensive defense, red zone offensive defense, they're roughly similar. They're very similar. This is a tough one to call, and I've been going back and forth in my own mind on this one for a number of days now, because Clemson does not look especially offensively like the Clemson Tigers we're used to seeing. They are struggling mightily on offense. They're struggling to move the ball. They're struggling to score points. Quarterback DJU is just not performing that well, but I don't think it's his fault. I think it's the lack of a good running game. Will Shipley is an okay running back, but he is certainly a couple of steps down from Travis Etienne. I think if you were to put Travis Etienne into this offense, I think Clemson would be rolling more like we thought they would be running at this point in the season, and I think DJU would be playing better because he'd have someone to take the pressure off of him. Because Clemson's running game isn't all that good, people are kind of loading up on the back end and forcing DJU into some tough throws, forcing him to have to read coverages that he might not have a lot of experience with, and they're just not smooth. They're kind of plodding along. They're finding ways to win, and their defense is very good. That defense is primo, but that offense is going to have to pick up the pace, or else you're not going to be playing complementary football, and the defense is going to get so tired that eventually they're going to wear down and start letting up points to an opposing team. This game's on the road at North Carolina State. I think teams in the ACC are kind of smelling blood in the water with Clemson, thinking that maybe this is the year somebody could pop them and take their crown as the ACC champs. I'm going to give Clemson the benefit of the doubt, and I don't fully trust North Carolina State to be the one to take them down, despite the fact that it's at home. So I'm going to go with Clemson, although, again, just like with the Oklahoma game, I'm very nervous about this one. It makes my hand shake a bit because, literally this game I think could go either way. So I'm going to stick with Clemson, though, on this. Number 10, the Ohio State Buckeyes. They are home against Akron. Interesting news developing out of Columbus. Quarterback CJ Stroud is going to be an emergency use only quarterback in that game. The 2 other quarterbacks whose names I don't know, all I know about them is that they're both freshmen and neither of them have thrown a pass as a college quarterback. Now, Akron is one of the worst teams in college football right now, but still, Ohio State has not necessarily been tearing it up against inferior opponents. Their defense isn't what we thought it was going to be this season. They're having trouble running the ball. They're having trouble stopping the run. They aren't getting their wide receivers like Chris Olave involved in the action. He did not have a catch last week in their win. So this Ohio State team is just like with Oklahoma, just like the Clemson. They're struggling to find their way with new pieces on offense. They're just struggling. And Ohio State is also struggling a bit on defense, which should be concerning for when they get into the heart of the Big Ten schedule. I'm going to trust Ohio State, though, in this one because I don't think Akron's any good, so go with the Buckeyes in this one. Number 11, Florida, coming off near comeback against Alabama. They were down by a couple of touchdowns. They came back and lost that game by 2 points. They are home versus Tennessee. Tennessee is a better team. I've seen them play a couple of times, and it seems like Josh Heupel, with his offense that he's installed as the new head coach, it seems like their new quarterback, Joe Milton, it seems like they've invigorated that program, like they've given it some more energy, and it just feels a little bit different watching the Tennessee Volunteers than it used to. They're not world beaters, and they're not quite there yet, but I think Tennessee's on the right path here. I don't see them being able to beat Florida, though, because I think Florida showed everybody something in that game against Alabama. They showed a lot of grit. They showed a lot of talent. They showed that they were not going to be giving up or laying down when the chips were down or when things looked bad. So I'm going to go with Florida at home against Tennessee because they know that now that they've lost to Alabama, they cannot lose another SEC game, especially since Tennessee is an SEC East opponent and they have to keep up with the Georgia Bulldogs. So go with the Gators in this one. Number 12, Notre Dame is taking on number 18, Wisconsin. This game is at a neutral site. It is being played at Soldier Field in Chicago, Illinois. Doing some research into this, I'm seeing that there are some pretty big disparities in a couple of the stats here. In terms of passing offense, Notre Dame's slinging the ball. They're throwing for an average of 342 yards a game compared to Wisconsin's 176. In terms of rushing offense, Wisconsin's running the ball for 266 a game. Notre Dame's only running the ball for 99 yards a game, so advantage Wisconsin there. In terms of rushing defense, Notre Dame's letting up 190 yards a game. Wisconsin is only letting up 33 yards a game, so advantage Wisconsin. In terms of passing D, Notre Dame's letting up 204 yards a game. Wisconsin's letting up 162 yards a game. I think other than the Penn State game that they lost, Wisconsin really hasn't played anyone major, so that's probably why these stats are a little bit the way that they are. But they did, in fact, play what's proving to be a good Penn State team, and they didn't lose to them by much. It was a close game through most of it. In terms of third down offense, Notre Dame's at 45% as compared to Wisconsin's 35%. In terms of third down defense, Wisconsin's a little bit better. They're allowing only 21% of their opponents to... They're only allowing their opponents to complete 31% of their third downs. Notre Dame's at 42%. In terms of red zone offense, Notre Dame's a little bit better. In terms of red zone defense, Wisconsin's a little bit better. Notre Dame's got a better turnover margin. Wisconsin's turned the ball over 3 times, a net of 3 times this season. Notre Dame has a net turnover margin of nothing. So there are some stats that go either way on this. Notre Dame has escaped a couple of games this season against inferior opponents. Florida State took them to overtime after being down 18 points in week 1. You might want to excuse that because, well, it's week 1. It was on the road. Maybe you got to get, you're breaking in a new quarterback and Jack Cohn. You kind of got to get the kinks out, right? Well, then explain Toledo. Explain Toledo hanging in until late in that game before Notre Dame was able to pull that one out. They put it together a little bit against Purdue, although Purdue did hang into that game for all of the first half and then part of the second half. So Notre Dame is not playing up to their own level. It seems like they're allowing themselves to play down to the level of their opponent. They can't do that in this game because Wisconsin's too good. Wisconsin's running attack is too good. Notre Dame's rushing defense is not that good. 190 yards on the ground a game is not great. So I think Wisconsin is going to run the ball. I think they're going to play time control. They're going to control the clock. I'm going to go with Wisconsin in an upset. Go with the number 18 Badgers over the number 12 Fighting Irish of Notre Dame in this one. Number 13, the Ole Miss Rebels. They have a bye week this week before a titanic matchup next week against the number 1 team in the nation, the Alabama Crimson Tide. That is going to be one to watch in 2 weeks. Number 14, the Iowa State Cyclones. They are on the road against the Baylor Bears. Iowa State is coming off a big win against UNLV because they were angry that they had lost at home the week prior against their in-state rival, the Iowa Hawkeyes, turning the ball over 4 times while doing so. I watched almost all of that game, and Iowa State just looked bad. They did not look like, at the time they were ranked number 9, they certainly did not look like the 9th-ranked team in the nation. Baylor, I haven't looked at their schedule, but I from what I remember, they're not really playing any real great teams. They beat the crap out of Kansas last week, 45-7. But I don't think they've played any real good teams this year, so some of the stats here may be a bit misleading. In terms of passing offense, Iowa State's at 226 a game, Baylor's at 222 a game, so they're very similar. Passing defense, Iowa State's letting up 168, Baylor's letting up 138, so again, pretty similar there. In terms of rushing offense, though, Iowa State's only running the ball for 112 yards a game. Baylor is running the ball for 329 a game. Again, the big caveat there is look at the quality of the opponents that they're facing. Even saying that, though, 329 a game is dang good. That's a lot of rushing offense that Baylor is generating. In terms of rushing defense, Iowa State's only letting up 56 yards a game as opposed to Baylor letting up 120. So the key to this game is going to be Baylor's rushing offense versus Iowa State's rushing defense. When you've got a defense that's letting up so few yards a game and an offense that's really producing, which one's going to give? In terms of third down percentage, Iowa State's only converting 31% of their third downs. They're going to have to get better on that to control the clock, to keep Baylor and their rushing attack off the field. Baylor's converting 46% of their third downs. In terms of third down defense, they're both about the same. They're both holding opponents to less than 40% conversion. They're both pretty good on red zone offense. They're both not that great on red zone defense. In terms of turnover margin, Iowa State is -2 on the year net, and Baylor is +3 on the year net. Although, again, 4 of those turnovers that Iowa State committed came in one game against Iowa, so maybe we can forgive that a bit. But, okay, so the rushing stats are the things that stand out to me. This game is, let me just check my notes here. It's on the road. It's at Baylor. So you can guess that Baylor's fans are going to be going out of their minds because it's a Big 12 matchup. Iowa State's coming in ranked number 14 in the country. Baylor's unranked. I believe that they're undefeated, though. So there's going to be a lot of energy in that stadium. There's going to be a lot of anticipation. I think what this is going to come down to is I don't trust Baylor's stats because I don't think they've played anybody. Iowa State at least played Iowa, and they looked bad doing it, but they at least played a good, very good Iowa team. That makes me believe their stats a little bit more. I don't think Baylor's going to run the ball for hundreds of yards against Iowa State. I think their defense is just too good. I think Brock Purdy and Breece Hall are finally going to start getting the offense rolling because I think Iowa State is already in desperation mode. Because the loss to Iowa, although it doesn't put them out of Big 12 title contention, it does, I think, put them out of playoff contention. They're down to number 14 in the rankings. They're going to have to win some big games later on this season and hope that a number of teams ahead of them drop if they want to have a shot at crashing the CFP. I don't necessarily picture that happening, but they cannot start the Big 12 season off with a loss. So I think Iowa State comes in with a bit of a sense of desperation. I'm going to go with the Cyclones on this one over the Baylor Bears. Number 15, BYU, coming off a big win against Arizona State at home. They are taking on a South Florida team, which is abysmal. I'm starting to believe in BYU, and South Florida stinks. So go with BYU in this one, obviously. But I think there's something special cooking with BYU this season. I don't know what it is, but they got some magic going on in that team, I think. Number 16, Arkansas. I've already called them winning against number 7, Texas A&M at home. Number 7, Coastal Carolina, coming off a 3-point win against Buffalo. They are home against UMass. Go with Coastal Carolina in that one. Number 18, Wisconsin. I've already called them winning against Notre Dame at a neutral site in Chicago. Number 19, Michigan, going up against Rutgers at home. It's Rutgers, so go with the Wolverines. Number 20, Michigan State is home against Nebraska. In the past few years, this is precisely the type of game that Michigan State would lose. They have a big road win against a top 20 team last week in Miami. They absolutely shellacked them. Miami didn't stand a chance in that game. Michigan State was running the ball down their throat. They got a couple of crucial turnovers. But this is exactly the type of game that in the past you would see Michigan State lose. Have a big road win against a top-ranked team. They're 3-0. People are starting to talk about them. They're generating some buzz. They're in the top 25. They're going against a team that they probably should beat in a Nebraska team that played tough against Oklahoma, but also lost in one of their early season matchups and doesn't really seem like they're doing that well. This is a game where we'll see how much of the culture new coach Mel Tucker has actually changed at MSU, or if they're going to be plagued by some of the same problems of the past. As much as I really hate to do this to my Spartans, I'm going with Nebraska in this one because I don't fully trust this 3-0 start. I really like what I'm seeing from Michigan State, but I don't know if after a truncated, really odd COVID season, if that is enough to have an entire culture change at MSU. I think this is a trap game. I think this is a letdown game. I think Nebraska gets MSU in East Lansing. It hurts to say that, but I think that's what's going to happen. Number 21, North Carolina, who I have to admit, I think I might be wrong with the North Carolina Tar Heels. After that loss against Virginia Tech, I said that I thought North Carolina was in a lot of trouble because I didn't think their offense was going to be able to produce. Well, all of a sudden, they've gone back-to-back games where I think they've scored over 40 points. They dropped 59 on Virginia last week, and Sam Howell rushed for over 100 yards. He had 5 touchdown passes in the game. It was absolutely incredible. I'm more willing now to chalk up that first game to just opening game jitters, being on the road for the first time in front of a giant number of fans. They weren't on the road against any fans last year because of COVID. I'm going to chalk that up to opening game jitters. But North Carolina seems like they're getting their mojo back. They're at Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech's coming off the heartbreaking loss against Clemson last week. I think UNC comes in and just drops a bomb on the Yellow Jackets. So go with North Carolina on this one. Number 22, Fresno State coming off their 3-point upset win against UCLA. Thanks a lot, UCLA. I called you in that game just when I was starting to believe in the UCLA Bruins. All of a sudden, they just dropped the ball against Fresno State. Fresno State's beaten them 4 straight times that they've played now. There's just something about Fresno that they've got UCLA's number. But they are home against UNLV this week. Go with Fresno State because UNLV isn't that good. Number 23, Auburn, dropping a spot in the rankings after the loss on the road in a close game against Penn State in the whiteout conditions. They are home against Georgia State. Go with the Auburn Tigers on that one. UCLA dropping a number of spots after that home loss to Fresno State. They are on the road at Stanford. I've done some research into this game as well. In terms of passing offense, they're within 10 yards of each other, so it's very equitable there. In terms of their passing defense, though, UCLA is letting up 287 a game, as opposed to the 184 that Stanford's letting up. But some of that, I'm sure, has to deal with the game last week against Fresno State, who was throwing the ball all over the field against UCLA, and they couldn't seem to stop them. In terms of rushing offense, there's a big difference here. UCLA is running the ball for 227 a game. Stanford only 90 yards a game. What is going on, Stanford? Stanford's always been known, even going back to the Jim Harbaugh era, for pounding the rock, playing good defense. They're running the ball for 90 yards a game. That's not good. In terms of rush defense, UCLA is only letting up 38 yards a game. Stanford's letting up 193 yards a game. So in terms of rushing offensive defense, UCLA clearly has the advantage here. Third down offense, they're about the same. Third down defense, they're about the same. Red zone offensive defense, they're about the same. Turnover margin over the season, UCLA is +2 as opposed to Stanford, who's even. So I think it pretty clearly comes down to the rushing attack here. Can Stanford stop the run against UCLA, and can they run the ball against UCLA? I think UCLA comes into this game angry. I think they come into this game really upset because they lost last week. Everybody was just starting to get high on them. They looked like they had a lot of momentum going in after that win against LSU, and then just drop an egg against Fresno State. I think they come into this game, now that we're starting the Pac-12 conference play, they come in angry, they come in with a chip on their shoulder, and I'm going to go with UCLA. I'm still going to believe in the Bruins for this week against the Cardinal on the road. I'm confident in this pick, but I'm not super confident in this pick. Which Stanford are we going to get? Are we going to get the Stanford that absolutely just got drubbed by Kansas State in week 1? Or are we going to get the Stanford team that dropped the bomb on UCLA on the road a week or two ago? I don't really know, but I think UCLA is a good team, so I'm going to go with them. And then finally, rounding out the top 25 picks this week, we've got Kansas State jumping into the top 25. They are on the road against Oklahoma State. On this one, I'm going to go with the Oklahoma State Sooners, or Oklahoma State Cowboys in this one, Oklahoma State Sooners. They'd probably lynch me if they heard me say that. I'm going to go with the Cowboys on this one. Kansas State is coming in with a backup quarterback. Scotty Thompson is out for the season with an injury. They're playing really good defense, and they're running the ball a lot. It's almost like they're just doing like an option game. They're just, I think, what did I hear about there in their last game against some sort of subpar opponent? They only threw the ball 10 times in the entire game. They relied on their running game. They relied on their defense. I don't think they're going to be able to just rely on their running game, attack against Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State isn't great. They're kind of up and down, and everybody's kind of wondering, what are we getting from the Oklahoma State Cowboys this season? But I don't trust Kansas State with a backup quarterback. I don't trust that they can simply run the ball and expect that they're going to go on the road to Stillwater and beat Okie State. So I'm going to go with Oklahoma State with another upset. I'm picking a lot of upsets this week. I've got West Virginia upsetting Oklahoma. I've got Arkansas upsetting Texas A&M. I've got Wisconsin upsetting Notre Dame. I've got Nebraska upsetting Michigan State. And now I've got Oklahoma State upsetting number 25, the Kansas State Wildcats. That's it for the top 25 picks, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. Next week, I will give you the rundown of how I've been doing this season when I get to the picks for week 5. Be sure to like this video, share it with anyone you think might enjoy it. Also, please subscribe to my channel and turn on those notifications so you'll get alerted to whenever new videos get put up on my channel. Videos about college football, videos about Robert's Rules of Order, videos about history, and anything else that I might choose to make a film about. Thanks so much for tuning in, everyone. I will see you all again for next week's picks.